Good morning, everyone. Well, it's such an exciting opportunity for us to be here in front of such an important number of partners and customers with such an interesting presentation. So we will try also to share some ideas on what is the state of the art regarding the public procurement technologies marketplace, especially trying to share with you well, what is beyond the mandatory adoption of public procurement. We have been talking about public procurement. This is something that it's mandatory in the short term, but besides what is mandatory, there is a huge number of services that contributes a lot for the traction of this type of technologies, especially below the thresholds, especially where 98% of the companies are, which is the small and medium-sized companies. And so there is a vast number of functionalities, services that contributes a lot for the efficiency and for these entities and suppliers to be excited with public procurement as well. We used to say that this is probably the most important driver we had recently and we are going to have in the next few years for the massive adoption of e-commerce technologies, business-to-business e-commerce technologies. The main reason is because public procurement touches a huge number of companies, especially small and medium-sized companies. 20% of the global GDP is related with public procurement. And so if we are mandating the use of a technology that is going to be used by a vast number of small and medium-sized companies, this is definitely a huge opportunity to digitalize all those companies as well. So when we think about public procurement, typically we think about the buy side. Most of the players think about the buy side, the functionalities for the buy side, which is actually something that's definitely important. But bear in mind that for each contracting authority using one platform, there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of economic operators, of companies, suppliers, using that same technology to interact with them. So the number of services, the level of services, the quality of the services we provide to suppliers is definitely critical for the success of the implementations of public e-tendering. So when we think about services for suppliers, we think about market intelligence, benchmarking, and mainly these two words, they are commonly used in several circumstances. But the point is that a platform, because it collects such a huge number of tenders, such a huge number of proposals, generates a huge amount of data related with prices, with categories of spend, with geographical dispersion of spend. So this is very important data for a supplier, especially if you are a small and medium-sized company. If you don't have a specialized marketing department to make surveys to understand the market, these type of tools can provide very valuable data regarding the market, allowing the companies to position their proposals, their offerings, even to decide to explore new markets, new geographies. So this is such a huge, an important vector of the services. Also, the multi-language support, critical if you want to think about cross-border commerce. The opportunity is matching because besides the public tendering, we have also the restricted tendering. So if a platform can act as a lead generation for a company, this is the best salesman you can have in your company. More recently, services like the ESPD and the VCD, this will contribute dramatically for the efficiency and the time saving in the companies. And also the predictive analytics. And here again, based on the data we have, there is a trend where it is possible to anticipate somehow what is going to be spent by category of spend, by geography, and so far and so forth. So this type of tools can actually generate a suite of services for suppliers that instead of looking to a platform only as a tool that is used by the buy side, typically to squeeze the supplier, this is something that can be seen by the companies as a productive tool, a sales tool, something that is really cool to use as well. On the buy side, besides, again, as I was saying, what is mandatory, new services like the dynamic purchasing system, it's something that will dramatically improve the efficiency in the negotiating procedures. The integration between the pre-award and the post-award is something that, especially for those entities that use more frequently this type of tools, will be of enormous advantage. The contracts management, the libraries of templates, will definitely improve the efficiency and will show the evidences to use this type of technologies, not only for what is mandatory, but mostly for what is below the thresholds, the restricted procedures. The annual procurement planning. This is of critical importance for the economic operators. If we can bring visibility to what is going to be spent by category of spend, by geography, again, this is very important. The aggregation of spend will bring enormous advantages if you want to take advantage of groups of contracting authorities. And the artificial intelligence that we have already heard today, and we are going to see today here a demo of what we are seeing, on how we are seeing to use artificial intelligence in public e-sourcing, or in private e-sourcing as well. The interoperability, something that we heard a lot already. This is something that, from our point of view, it's of critical importance in a stage where we are implementing several platforms across different countries with different levels of maturity in the implementation of public procurement, where in some markets there will be one single platform, in other markets there will be a combination of public platforms with private platforms. It is important to start thinking about what needs to be interoperable. Otherwise, in the short term, we will have a large number of different platforms that are not able to speak each other, and will create silos that will be even bigger than the ones we have today. So we think that this is definitely a trend that will create new business models, new market opportunities. We believe that will be a combination of buy-side operators with supply-side operators, companies that will be only focused on the supply side. And to do that, the single enterprise ID will be of critical importance, because this is one of the first steps we believe that could be of a huge advantage for the economic operators. Driving the digitalization of the small and medium-sized companies. This is something that I've already mentioned before. I'm not going to spend so much time here, but bear one thing in mind. If a small and medium-sized company starts to using a platform to have access to opportunities to make business, and if in that network there are thousands of companies that can be customers as well, and we facilitate dramatically the access to those opportunities to sell more to those companies, this is exciting for every company. So we are deeply convinced, and we are seeing already, that the public procurement is a driver to get companies into these ecosystems, but the online stores will get more traction. The companies will be more proactive presenting their proposals, and we will see, besides global communities, global marketplaces, and global platforms operating, will be a combination of hybrid marketplaces, which will be a combination of local communities, especially at the local administration and regional administration, combined with large national and sometimes international communities of suppliers. So to discuss this, we have here two colleagues and friends that we used to discuss with about all these topics. Luca, he's the head of procurement and strategies in Consip, Italy, and Cornelis, besides his roles in the CN standardization topics, he is also the head of invoicing in the Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands, and definitely one of the most exposed persons I know to the interoperability. So, well, thank you both for being here. I will ask you just to make a brief presentation that you have prepared here. Luca, from your side, it would be important to learn how a CPB can drive the adoption of public procurement in a country like Italy, and try to expose that for the other countries as well. Cornelis, from your hand, it will be most focused on how we can take advantage of the e-sense and try to see how far we are from having an interoperable world in the public e-tendering. So, thank you guys.
Thank you. Can I change? Okay. Okay, thank you, Miguel. Thank you all. Thank you for this invitation. I'm very glad to share with you our experience. I'm the responsible for the e-procurement services in CONSIP. CONSIP is the national central procurement body in Italy. So my point of view is the point of view of an entity that has the responsibility to, on one side, aggregate demand. We started as an aggregator of demand in order to leverage on the contract power of public administration when aggregating demand. But since the very beginning, I'm talking about 2000, the second pillar of our action to rationalize the Italian public expenditure was the digitalization path. So we started to go in sync with the role of an aggregation center, public spending aggregation center, and the digitalization of public procurement. So this is my peculiar point of view, and I would like to share with you some experiences. First of all, we act in a public procurement scenario that is very complex, and where digitalization is really the key success factor to rationalize public spending. Complex because we have a huge number of contracting authority, 32,000, millions of suppliers, mainly small micro enterprises. So what it was saying Miguel just before is really a topic to us, how to involve micro enterprises in order to get an advantage, not only in terms of selling, but even in terms of evolution of the 87 billion euro spending, yearly spending of public administration just in goods and services. And then we have a problem. The problem is that this spending is made of every year more than 4.5 million procedures. So all these 32,000 buyers meet and negotiate with the hundreds of thousands of suppliers to close and to manage this number of contracts. If we don't have a figure of how much of these contracts are today digitalized. When I say digitalized, I mean just the e-submission phase, or in the smaller contracts, the e-ordering phase. But I can say, from my point of view, that we are not more than 25%. So we have a long way to go in order to get the results we want, then the target that we have in the directive and even in the national, Italian national legislation, to digitalize 100% by end of 2018. This is the challenge that we have. On the other side, what is happening in Italy since 2007, so more than 10 years ago, is that we have this double role of the central procurement bodies that are, as CONSIP, not only aggregating demand, but even providing e-procurement services. So we have, more or less, it is always changing the number, 30 central procurement bodies, one national, this is CONSIP, then 20 regional, and some more than 10 sub-regionals. These are, in the time, more and more making available e-procurement platforms. In some cases, with a very not so often with the make approach. In other cases, with a buy approach, or at least buy personalized, customized services from the market. So this is the scenario where we are acting. And as you can imagine, this is a very challenging scenario because asks for a great investment not only in technology. Technology perhaps is not the main problem, but in competencies, governance, and we will get on these kind of aspects. So, Miguel was talking about dynamic purchasing system involving small and medium enterprise, small micro enterprises in the e-procurement, public e-procurement arena. How we are approaching this? And this is the strategy of Consip since the year 2000, but I can say that this is something that is quite general in the other procurement bodies in Italy. What we are trying to do is giving to all the different buying needs the right buying service. This is just a way to represent let's say the characteristics or the position of different buying tools that are becoming services. This is just to say that in our e-procurement system, for example, we have different kind of procedures that we can provide to buyers and suppliers to negotiate. And this range of e-procurement services has to be positioned on the market needs that buyers and sellers have. For example, we run and we provide our platform shops to buy from framework contracts. In that case, Consip is an awarding authority that aggregates demand, award big framework contracts, for example, for personal computers or for cleaning services, whatever. And the e-procurement service that we provide is actually a very simple service that is just an e-shop where buyers can go and pick up the product, put in the cart, and make any order. But this kind of service is adapted, can fit to a market that is very standardized in terms of buyer requirements and very concentrated and standardized too on the supplier side. The more we move toward the customization of the requirement and the fragmentation of the market, we move through e-procurement services that can enable the buyers and the suppliers to meet in the digital space and negotiate what they really need in terms of, and what they can really provide in terms of single contracts. So the role of the CPB in that case is moving from the awarding authority that is quite traditional and even well defined in the legislation and even in the activity that we know to do, running tenders, is moving toward the role of a market maker. That means placing in the public procurement environment services in order to have buyers and sellers to negotiate each other. And the largest of these services is the MEPA, that is the electronic marketplace for public administration that we run since 2004, and it is really the place where below the threshold acquisition are managed, and it is the place where we see what Miguel was saying, that most of the contracts, most of the actors in terms of buyers and suppliers are really very small contracts, very small buyers, very small companies. So managing this wide range of e-procurement services enable us to give the right e-procurement environment for each buying or selling need. So what I'm trying to say is that one challenge that we have in the public procurement, Italian public procurement environment is to develop a multi-service environment in order to enable all the buyers to drive in a digital way all their procedures. To give just one figure, out of this, that 4.5 million contracts that every year are negotiated or, let's say, signed in the public procurement in Italy, more than 95% are below 40,000 euro. So the big mass of these contracts are involving small enterprises. And this is something that is very critical and important under the public spending policy. We want to define a space in an economy as Italian economy is, but as most of the European economy are, for the participation of small and medium enterprises. And this is this kind of space. In terms of e-procurement tools, this means creating and managing an electronic marketplace that is a sort of public eBay in public administration. So just to give you some figures of what does it mean, and in terms of numbers, to manage this. More or less, the value of contracts that are, these are figures 2000, last year, more or less the contract values that were run and awarded through our platform is 7 billion euro. So if you see, out of the 87 billion euro of all the goods and services, we just act in the goods and services environment. We started with the maintenance works last year. So it's just a small part of this. And if we talk about that in terms of number of contracts, that is more or less 700,000 contracts, this is, again, a small part of 4.5 million. But already we are, let's say, enabling in a digital activity in public procurement more than 50,000 suppliers and more than 60,000 buyers. We can say that on the buyer side, almost the 90% of the buyers that we have in Italy, I mean the single person that are working in the public administration, are now used to get to a personal computer to run a digital procedure. Perhaps the digital procedure is a very simple one. Go on the catalog of the electronic marketplace, select from all the suppliers' offers, and click and put in the cart. But it is a very important change that we have to support. So what we are targeting, the directive and the Italian legislation give us this timeline that is 100% of digital procurement by end year 2018, and this is something that we want to get is the digitalization of the full process, because even it's a big effort to drive actors, buyers and suppliers, just to manage the specific, let's say, pre-award and post-award activity. That means running, submitting asking for an offer, submitting an offer, and awarding an offer, and so forth. This is a very big effort. But what is very important, and I think the very valuable aspects of e-procurement, is to give the integration of all the chain, because it's there that we give real value to users. Because for users, digitalizing the process of making an order or making a tender is, of course, after a very strong effort of education and assistance, a value. but the real value is to simplify their life. And their life is simplified if we connect all the phases and apply, as I put over there as one of the main target, the so-called once-only principle. So I want to do things, input data, send a communication just once. And the system must enable me to do that if I have to manage the same data. Of course, it's in Italy, but I think in most countries, this is the challenge is to govern this, because it's not just Consip or the Lombardia CPB problem to do that. We have to get together and to define rules, action plans, investment. We have to share investments. This is a huge problem of governance. In Italy, we established at the government level a working group that is a procurement working group that is responsible to govern and to make a plan that we did, and to monitor the plan and to facilitate the migration to e-procurement in the public sector. And of course, change management. You can imagine how difficult it is to change all this mass of users and institutions and suppliers from the traditional paper-based processes to a real digitalized process. It is not just digitalizing paper. It's changing the way they work. And this is, to me, the biggest challenge. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about interoperability. I've been working with Miguel and Luca in the expert group on e-procurement. In the last, I think, 2 years, we have been advising the Commission on interoperability issues. And so you should see this presentation in the perspective of what is happening in Europe. And I have been working on a project, it's called eSense, for the last 3 years. And in this project, we try to connect tendering systems throughout Europe. So I will share with you the results of this project. E-procurement, the opportunity to do electronic procurement in Europe has been in the directive since 2004. So it's in there for a long time. And if you see this on a European level, the only thing that has been standardized in Europe is the notification area. I think we all know Tenders Electronic Daily, so we are able to publish our notices on a European platform. But you can see the whole procurement procedure here, access to documents, submission, evaluation, awarding, that has not been harmonized yet. What is the biggest advantage of e-procurement? E-procurement has external effects. E-procurement gives the opportunity for businesses to easily engage the procedure. If we do this digitally, you can do this throughout. The space is gone, so you can access procurement procedures, and it doesn't matter where you are. And if we talk about more access to procurement procedures, this means that you have more competition. And more competition leads to better quality and better prices. So the whole idea of e-procurement, well, besides all the administrative efficiency in there, but the economic potential of e-procurement is that we should give easy access to our businesses to get engaged into these procedures. And what we have seen in Europe is that in the last, since 2004, a lot of tendering systems performed services to public authorities. We have a huge number of tendering systems. You see Vortal in there. Pixelware is active here in Spain. Well, you know these names. Gatewith also in Portugal. In the Netherlands, we are using TenderNet. So a lot of these e-tendering systems offered e-procurement services to public authorities. And this leads to a rise of electronic procurement. In my country, for example, in the Netherlands, we are now almost 90% of all tenders are being submitted electronically. So this is a success. And, you know, Portugal was one of these success countries as well. And Spain will be a good example as well. And in the Nordics, we see good examples. So offering electronic services in e-procurement is a good idea. But with all these systems, we also create new barriers. And keep in mind, we are now talking about access to businesses. All these systems, and I'm now a bit generalizing it, they are having their own authentication mechanisms, and this means that there are difficulties in access to the documents, and we have different qualification criteria, and not mentioning the signatures in all these countries in Europe are different. So all these new systems, they are really fulfilling the promise of e-procurement, but they are also, you know, providing new barriers. And that's what we try to solve with eSense. And the idea is that we now split the contracting authority side from the economic operator side. So we are actually empowering the suppliers, the economic operators, to use their own system. Therefore, a lot of these barriers that I mentioned can be solved because an economic operator can choose its own system, can choose its own authentication, its own signature, its own qualification, can choose its own system. So we are splitting the systems, and therefore we need to standardize the messages between the systems. So I am able to use my own system when I submit a tender for a public authority. I'm able to receive updates from the other systems, and that's what we did in eSense. And we managed to do so. This was an idea, let's say 4 years ago. It was a bold idea because we are talking about interoperability. We need to standardize. We need to get the market ready. We really need to get this up and running. But I think we managed. We started off with 3 systems at the beginning, but in the end of this project, we had like 9 tendering systems connected to this network. Well, you see the list of names here. And I mentioned gateways. That is okay, gateways is for the interoperability. You need a connection between them, let's say post offices. So tendering systems connect to gateways, and gateways are connected to the network. And just to give you an idea that all these countries that are involved in this project, so we have Denmark, Greece, Portugal, Spain, but it's not only Europe. You see the South African flag there as well. So it's a bigger idea. Okay, so what is the result of this project? What did we do actually? We proved that it is possible for tendering systems to connect. We proved that it is possible for suppliers to use their own system. And what we actually did is we added to the suite of interoperability possibilities in Europe. We have the Tenders Electronic Daily for the notification, but we added to that Tenders Electronic Europe, an interoperability ecosystem of e-tendering systems. This is possible. This is the reality. But this was a pilot. So this is not yet something that we can use or we can offer to our clients. How far are we from really offering this to our clients? So I think in the near future, and I'm talking next year, so this is really the near future, you will see that what we have tested, what we have piloted, will be into production. We will really use this. Tendering systems will implement the first steps of these pilot. And then you can think of the next steps from notification. So when I'm interested in I find an interesting business opportunity on a notification portal, the next step would be, okay, give me the documents, put me on the list. When there is updates, give me the the documents. So this is a fairly easy step, but it is the next step, and it is to get this network up and running. The good thing about the eSense pilot is that we proved that it is possible. We provided all the specifications that you need to implement this. We provide governance on these specifications. Not sure if you know about PEPL, but PEPL is the user community that is providing governance on these specifications. And we also have funding available. So it is possible to implement this. I told you about we are advising the European Commission from the EXEP, but one of the possibilities that the European Commission is providing to us is the CEF connecting facility. That's a funding scheme, and within this next year, or this year actually, we are able to use this funding mechanism to implement the results of this eSense project. So what you will see is a couple of tendering systems implementing the first steps. What to expect after that? Once we get this to our users, so once we show to our suppliers and to our customers that you are able to access other business opportunities, that you can get the documents for other business opportunities, you will see that they will come back to us with more demands. They will ask us, okay, if I can get the documents, can I also subscribe to this procedure? Can I submit my tender? So I think by giving them the first steps, you will see that there will be a demand. And then you will see we'll be able to submit tender, we can award the contract, we can submit qualification documents. And you can expect that 2019, 2020. So what is the... we are now talking about interoperability. We are talking about the possibility to connect tendering systems. What is really happening here? I think this is innovation. Because interoperability, connecting tendering systems will open the European market. And will open the market will be quite bigger. And you will see, once we have split the tendering system, you will see new business opportunities emerge. There will be new systems available that only cater for the supplier, only for the economic operator. Very simple interfaces that will only cater for them. So new business models will be there. I think there will be services to businesses. And in the end, this will empower suppliers. This will give better access to public procurement. And that's the whole thing that we are trying to do here. This is my last slide just to show you what potential is happening here. This is the Juncker plan for growth. And it is telling us that in the middle, you see there the digital single market. We are creating the digital single market. And the procurement area there is potential savings of 100 billion euros. That is the opportunity that we try to realize here. Okay, thank you.
Just before we close the session, Luca, one question. You mentioned that in Italy, likely in most of the other countries, the large majority of the contracts are below the thresholds. And you mentioned 40k euros as a threshold for 90-something% of the public spending in goods and services. In Italy, in what regards the transposition of the directives, that type of public procurements will be mandatory to be run in a public e-tendering platform as well?
Yes, because the Italian transposition of the directive doesn't make any difference in terms of the value of the contract. What the Italian law says is that all the procurement procedures must be run, the communications in all the procurement procedures must be run in a digital way, using digital communication tools. So there is no difference between based on the value. And this is the reason why we are working very hard in order to make available to all the awarding authorities a full set of services to buy digitally. We have an electronic marketplace that is based on a catalog, on the subscription and enrollment of suppliers with a process to check the supplier's characteristics. That is the national one that we manage. Then we have in some regions other platforms that can are just let's say e-tendering platforms that can be adopted both for above the threshold and below the threshold, like it is in Lombardia, for example. But this is the approach.
Cornelis, in the stage where we are regarding the interoperability, it looks like most of the transactions are defined, are standardized. And in your specific case in the Netherlands, there is a combination of a public platform, several private platforms. You have been involved in all these projects since the beginning. Are you anticipating your country, and for the best of your knowledge, other countries, to define interoperability to be mandatory in the short, medium term?
Good question. You're now talking about if the contracting authorities, when they do tenders for new tendering systems, do they require these systems to be interoperable? And do we have any national regulations on these systems? So do we support interoperability? Well, the answer to that is in the Netherlands we do not have regulations on tendering systems, so the possibility is not there. But what we try to do with TenderNet is that we try to develop these interoperability modules, and then we share the knowledge and we share the technology with other systems. I think interoperability is not only for cross-border, but is also on the national level very important. Because we also are interoperable with national systems and also with other European systems.
Before we finish, any question from the audience? No? Okay, so I think we can finish here. Thank you very much, Luca, Cornelis.